Hey everyone, my name is Jake. I'm 26 years old and I'm from Brazil. But just 5 months ago, I couldn't speak a single full sentence in English, not even, how are you, without thinking too much. I was completely lost. Today, I want to tell you how I learned English in just 5 months without any expensive classes, without going to an English-speaking country, and without wasting time on useless methods. But this is not just my story. This is your story too. If you've ever felt frustrated, stuck, or embarrassed because of your English, keep watching because I was exactly where you are. And I promise, if you listen to my full journey step by step, you'll know exactly how to improve your English. So let's go back to the beginning, because my journey didn't start with motivation. It started with a big failure that changed my life. I always wanted to work for an international company. My dream job was to be a software engineer at a big tech company. I loved coding, I was good at it, and I worked day and night to become the best. Finally, after years of hard work, I got my chance. I applied for a huge company in the US. A few days later, the recruiter emailed me, "Congratulations, you are selected for an interview." I was so excited. I imagined my life in a new country, earning a big salary, working with the best people. But then, the interview happened. I remember it like it was yesterday. I opened Zoom and saw 3 interviewers, all native English speakers. They started talking and it felt like someone had pressed fast forward on their voices. I couldn't understand anything. Then they asked the first question, "Jake, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience in software development?" I panicked. I knew the answer in my head, but the words wouldn't come out. I said, yes, I am software. I do coding, many projects. Good. I am very good. They looked at me. The silence felt like a knife to my stomach. They asked another question, but I couldn't answer that one either. In the end, one of them smiled and said, "All right, Jake, thank you for your time." I knew what that meant. I had failed. I didn't get the job not because I wasn't good enough at my work, but because I couldn't speak English. That day, I understood the power of English. It wasn't just a language, it was the key to my dream. And right then, I didn't have that key. I felt ashamed, embarrassed, and angry at myself. For years, I told myself, I don't need English. I'll just be good at my job, that'll be enough. But now I saw the truth. Without English, I was invisible. That night, I made a decision. I would learn English, and I would learn it fast. Most people, when they start learning English, do one thing. First, they pay for expensive courses. But I didn't. Why? Because I had already tried them before, and they didn't work. A year earlier, I paid for an online English class. The teacher made me memorize vocabulary lists, do grammar exercises, and study boring rules. But after 3 months, when I tried to have a real conversation, I still couldn't speak. So I knew expensive classes weren't the answer. If I wanted to learn English fast, I needed something different, something that worked in real life. That's when I started my 5-month method, which I'll share with you now step by step. The biggest mistake beginners make is thinking they need more words. I thought the same. I believed that if I learned 1,000 words, I would speak fluently. But the truth is, I already knew hundreds of words, yet I still couldn't speak. So, for the first 15 days, I didn't study any new words. Instead, I did something much more powerful. I learned how to use the words I already knew. Here's exactly what I did. First, I made a survival sentence list. I sat down and asked myself, what do I actually need to say every day? I wrote 50 simple sentences that I needed in real life, such as, "Hi, how are you? Can you repeat that? I don't understand. I'm learning English. I need a coffee, please." Every morning, I read these 50 sentences out loud, not once, not twice, but 10 times. At first, my tongue felt slow, but after 5 days, these sentences became automatic. Second, I started speaking to myself in English every single day. This was one of the most powerful things I did. Whenever I was alone, I spoke English to myself. For example, when I was in the shower, I said, "I am taking a shower. The water is hot. I feel relaxed." When I made breakfast, I said, "I am making eggs. I like eggs. They are easy to cook." At first I felt stupid, but then I realized this was my private classroom. No one could hear me. No one could judge me. And in just 1 week, my brain started thinking in English. Third, I practiced 5 sentences a day, but with a twist. Every day, I chose 5 sentences from movies or real conversations, but I didn't just read them. I copied them exactly with the same emotion, speed, and pronunciation as a native speaker. I repeated them 10 times. This helped me fix my accent and sound natural. By the end of the first 15 days, something changed. I stopped translating in my head. I could say basic sentences without thinking. I felt more confident. But this was just the beginning, because after those first 15 days, the real practice began. Part 2. The real practice begins. I was finally ready to take the next step. I could say basic sentences without thinking, and I felt more confident. But I knew this was not enough. I didn't want to just say short sentences. I wanted to have real conversations. I wanted to understand native speakers without translating in my head. I wanted to speak fluently, so I created a new plan, a plan that would change everything. And if you follow it, you will improve faster than you ever thought possible. I realized something important. When I tried to speak English, my brain was slow. I knew the words, but I couldn't put them together quickly. I needed a way to make speaking feel natural. That's when I started using a method that I now call the question-answer method. This method is simple but powerful. Here's how it works. First, I asked myself a simple question in English. Second, I answered it immediately without thinking too much. Third, I repeated the process with different answers. For example, I started with an easy question. What did you do today? At first, my answer was short. I worked. But I forced myself to say more. I worked on my project. Then, I worked on my project for 3 hours. Later, I worked on my project for 3 hours. Then I took a break. Finally, I worked on my project for 3 hours. Then I took a break and had some coffee. Every time I answered, I added more details. This trained my brain to think in English and speak without hesitation. Another example question was, what did you eat for breakfast? My first answer was, I ate eggs. Then I expanded. I ate eggs and toast. I ate eggs, toast, and a banana. I ate eggs, toast, and a banana because I was really hungry. Finally, I ate eggs, toast, and a banana because I was really hungry. And I love eating a big breakfast. I practice this every single day for at least 30 minutes. My speaking speed improved dramatically. My sentences became longer and I stopped translating in my head. One of my biggest problems, however, was pronunciation. Even when I spoke English, I still sounded like a foreigner. Native speakers understood me, but my accent was strong. So I used the echo technique, the best way to improve pronunciation without a teacher. Here's how it works. First, I listen to a native speaker from movies, YouTube videos, or podcasts. Second, I pause the audio after each sentence. Third, I repeated the sentence exactly the same way. Same speed, same tone, same emotion. For example, I took a short clip from a movie. The character said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I paused and repeated, "I don't know what you're talking about." At first, it felt difficult, but after repeating it 10 times, my voice started to sound similar to the native speakers. Another example was from a podcast. It was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk. I paused and repeated, "It was a beautiful day, so I decided to go for a walk." I did this every day for 30 minutes. After 1 month, my pronunciation improved so much that even native speakers started saying, "Wow, your English sounds really natural." I knew vocabulary was important, but I also knew that memorizing word lists doesn't work. So I used the story method. Here's how it works. First, I chose 5 new words every day. Second, I created a short story using all 5 words. Third, I read the story out loud 10 times. Fourth, I used the new words in real conversations. For example, my new words were excited, invitation, party, arrive, and surprise. My story was, I was very excited because I received an invitation to a big party. When I arrived at the party, I got a huge surprise. It was my birthday party. I did this every single day. After 3 months, I had learned over 1,000 new words without memorizing anything. One of the biggest problems English learners face is that they think in their native language first, then translate into English. This makes speaking slow and unnatural. So I trained my brain to think in English. Here's how. First, I described everything around me in English. For example, when I walked outside, I said in my mind, "The sky is blue, the weather is hot, I see people walking, that man is wearing a red shirt." Second, I asked myself questions and answered them in English. For example, what am I doing right now? I'm sitting in a chair, drinking coffee and writing in my notebook. Third, I wrote my daily journal in English. Every night I wrote about my day in English. At first, I wrote simple sentences, but after 1 month, my writing became more natural. After a few weeks, I noticed something amazing. I was no longer translating. English words came naturally into my mind. One thing I did that made a huge difference was creating a rule for myself. Every day, I had to speak English for at least 2 hours. No excuses. If I had no one to talk to, I talked to myself. If I didn't have time, I spoke while doing daily activities, cooking, cleaning, walking. And if I ever felt lazy, I reminded myself, English is my future. I cannot quit. Part 3. My final breakthrough. Now that I had built the habit of listening and repeating, I wanted to push myself further. But I also realized something very important. Just listening and speaking wouldn't be enough if I didn't understand English grammar and structure properly. I didn't want to make mistakes that could confuse people, and I definitely wanted to sound more natural. So I started observing how native speakers structured their sentences. Every time I heard a sentence, I didn't just repeat it. I asked myself, why is this sentence structured like this? For example, I heard people say, I have been learning English for 5 months, but in school I had learned I am learning English for 5 months. That small difference opened a big door of understanding and it changed the way I spoke forever. That was my first big realization. The English we learn in school is often very different from the English people actually speak. So I started researching the differences. I learned about tenses in real life use. When do people use the present perfect tense? Why do they say I have been learning instead of I am learning? I discovered that small details like these made a huge difference in sounding natural. I wrote down common sentence structures and practiced them daily. One of my biggest challenges was prepositions on the bus, but in the car at night, but in the morning. Why? I kept a small notebook where I wrote confusing prepositions with examples. Whenever I had doubts, I searched online or listened to how native speakers use them. To take it further, I started writing a daily diary in English. Every night, I wrote about my day. At first, my writing was simple. Today, I went to work. I was tired, I ate pizza, it was good. But I wanted to improve, so I asked myself, how do native speakers write? I read blogs, books, and news articles and noticed how they structured their sentences. Then I tried to copy that style in my diary. One thing that really accelerated my learning was shadowing. I found videos of native speakers, put on headphones, and repeated every word immediately after them, matching their speed and pronunciation. I did this for at least 20 minutes a day, and within weeks, my pronunciation improved dramatically. Another trick that helped me was watching English movies with subtitles. But instead of watching passively, I paused after every sentence and repeated it, focusing on pronunciation, tone, and rhythm. Slowly, my English started sounding more natural. At this stage, I realized something crucial. English is not just about words and grammar, it's also about confidence. Many people know English but are too scared to speak. I made a decision. I would not be afraid of making mistakes. I started speaking English whenever I could at work, in stores, with friends. Even when I was unsure, I spoke. And I noticed something surprising. People understood me. Even if I made small mistakes, they didn't laugh. This gave me the confidence to keep going. Then came my biggest fear, talking to native speakers. I was terrified they wouldn't understand me or that I would freeze. So I came up with a strategy. I prepared 10 common conversation topics and practiced them every day. How was your day? What do you do for work? What's your favorite food? I practiced answering fluently. Then I took the leap. I joined an online group where people from different countries practiced English. At first I was nervous, but soon I realized everyone was there to learn just like me. I made friends from different countries and we practiced together. This not only improved my English, but also made learning fun. As I reached the final stage of my English learning journey, I felt unshakable confidence growing inside me. I was no longer the same person who had been rejected because of poor English skills. I had transformed myself step by step through consistent effort, practice, and the right mindset. One day, as I was speaking to myself in the mirror, something I had done countless times before, I noticed something was different. I wasn't hesitating or translating in my head. The words flowed naturally. It felt like magic, but it was actually the result of months of effort. That same day, I decided to test my progress by having a deep conversation with a native speaker. I joined an online meeting where people from different countries discussed various topics. At first, I was nervous, but I reminded myself I've worked too hard to doubt myself now. And then I spoke. The words came out clearly, confidently. I didn't struggle to find the right words. I understood others without feeling lost. People listened, nodded, and even asked me questions. It was an incredible moment. That was the day I knew I had achieved fluency. 5 months after starting my journey, I applied for my dream job again. But this time, I wasn't the same Jack who had walked in nervously months ago. I wasn't the guy who hesitated, who felt small, who couldn't find the right words. This time, I walked into that interview room with confidence. I sat in front of the interviewer, not as someone who feared English, but as someone who had mastered it. I spoke clearly and answered every question with ease. I wasn't just speaking English, I was owning it. And I could see it in their eyes. They were impressed not just with my language, but with my effort, my persistence, my transformation. A few days later, I got the call, one I will never forget. Jack, congratulations, you got the job. For a second, I couldn't believe it. My dream job. The same company that had rejected me before now wanted me. My starting salary was $5,000 a month more than I had ever imagined earning. I stood there, holding my phone, shaking, eyes full of tears. The first thing I did was call my parents. Mom, Dad, I did it. My mother started crying on the other end. My father, a man who rarely shows emotion, simply said, "We always knew you could." In that moment, I realized I wasn't just doing this for me, I was doing it for them too. With my first salary, I bought my father a beautiful watch, something he had always wanted but never bought for himself. For my mother, I bought a gold necklace. She had sacrificed so much for me and our family, and now it was my turn to give back. When I handed them the gifts, they refused at first. "We don't need anything, son," they said, but I shook my head. "No, this is my way of saying thank you. Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." And that was the moment I understood. It was all worth it. Every struggle, every late night, every moment of frustration, every time I felt like giving up, it was all worth it. Now, let me share the most important lessons I learned on my journey that helped me become fluent in English in just a few months. 1. Mindset is everything. Most people fail to learn English because they believe they can't. I used to think the same way, but the moment I changed my mindset, everything changed. I told myself, English is not difficult. I can learn it just like any other skill. I stopped saying, I'm bad at English, and started saying, I'm improving every day. If you think you can't do it, you won't. But if you believe you can, you'll find a way. 2. Surround yourself with English. I made English a part of my daily life. I changed my phone's language to English. I watched only English content. I listened to English songs, even if I didn't understand all the lyrics. I followed English-speaking influencers on social media. Every day I was feeding my brain with English. I also made sure to speak and think in English. Whenever I looked at an object, I named it in English. If I saw a car, I would say, that's a blue car. It's moving fast. Small things like this helped me build my vocabulary naturally. 3. Speak without fear. Many people are afraid of making mistakes, but mistakes are part of learning. I used to be scared of speaking, but then I realized Native speakers don't care if you make mistakes. They appreciate your effort. So I forced myself to speak. I spoke to shopkeepers in English, asked strangers for directions in English, and even started talking to myself whenever I was alone. The more I spoke, the better I became. 4. Active listening and shadowing. Listening is just as important as speaking. I trained my ears to understand spoken English by listening to podcasts, audiobooks, and real-life conversations. But I didn't just listen passively. I practiced shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a sentence and repeating it immediately, mimicking the pronunciation and rhythm. This helped me improve my accent, tone, and fluency. 5. Expand your vocabulary smartly. At first, I tried memorizing long lists of words, but that didn't work. Instead, I learned words in context. I focus on phrases instead of single words. For example, instead of memorizing the word happy, I learned phrases like, I feel so happy today, or that movie made me really happy. Learning in context made it easier to remember and use words naturally. 6. Grammar without books. I didn't spend hours studying grammar rules. Instead, I learned grammar naturally by listening, reading, and speaking. When I made a mistake, I noted it and corrected myself. For example, I used to say, he go to school. When someone corrected me, I learned the correct form. He goes to school. The best way to learn grammar is by using the language, not memorizing rules. 7. Consistency over perfection. Many people wait until they're perfect before they start speaking. That's a mistake. I didn't wait. I started speaking from day one. Even when I knew only a few words, I used them. I made a rule. Every day I would do something in English. Some days I spoke for 10 minutes. Some days I wrote a short paragraph. Some days I listened to a podcast. The key was consistency. Even on days when I felt lazy, I still did something. You don't need expensive classes or a perfect environment. You just need a strong desire and the commitment to practice every day. Imagine yourself 6 months from now, speaking English fluently, confidently. Imagine the opportunities that will come your way. Imagine how proud you'll feel. Start today. Speak, listen, practice, and never give up. Your future self will thank you. This isn't just about learning English, it's about changing your life. And now, I want to say something to you. If I can do it, you can do it too. It doesn't matter where you start or how bad you think your English is. What matters is that you start today, right now. I know it's hard. I know it feels impossible sometimes. But trust me, the only thing standing between you and fluency is consistency. Stop doubting yourself. Stop making excuses. Surround yourself with English. Speak, listen, read, and write every single day. Make mistakes, learn from them, and improve. Because here's the truth. The pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts forever. So what will you choose? Choose discipline. Choose growth. Choose success. Your journey to fluency starts now. If this story inspired you, like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'll be with you every step of the way. Let's do this together.